You're listening to The Broker's Terminal, a Mass Effect podcast. On this episode of The Broker's Terminal, Season 1, Episode 7, we talk with Danielle Rayne about her role as Vetra in Mass Effect Andromeda. Thank you for listening. This is The Broker's Terminal, a Mass Effect podcast. All right, hello. Welcome to The Broker's Terminal. I am Rachel, here with my friend Lexi.
Hello.
Hello, and
Back at it again.
here we are, back at it. And we are here with our guest, Danny. Hello.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Doing pretty okay.
Good.
We're only a little excited for today's episode.
just a little, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm so glad you guys invited me.
Yeah,
Vetra's truly one of my favorite characters I've ever done. So
yeah, that's awesome. And I certainly, and I know if I can speak for Lexi for 2 seconds, which I would do anyway, we can tell just by like the way that you react to the fans on Twitter, if that's the only like outlet we could have to see like your love for Vetra. So we're really super honored to have you.
You know, I think as an actor, you're just so incredibly lucky when you get the chance to do a role that a lot of people, just it resonates with, or, that it's just an important part of their gaming experience. And I just feel so lucky whenever somebody, sends me a piece of art they had commissioned, or, just there's somebody making a 3D version using a 3D printer to make Vetra. I mean, there's so many cool things going on, and I just love celebrating everybody who's as into Vetra as I was into, voicing her.
Sure. Yeah, I think now I'll just get this out of the way. My friend Mel recently posted a selfie of herself nice, in a
In the t-shirt?
in the t-shirt. That's my friend, and she
Oh my gosh.
was
Yeah, I saw
losing
that.
it. So
What a fantastic t-shirt.
I wanted to
just
make sure that
loved it.
I mentioned her too, because she is a new Mass Effect fan, has only played with the release of the Legendary Edition, and then
Oh,
just
really?
like jumped into Andromeda and was like, so Vetra's the greatest person I've ever met. And so I just want to make sure
Aw.
I gave her some love here.
Fantastic. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I love that t-shirt.
Yeah,
That was
it was
really
very
great.
cool.
And I love that she gave a shout out to the artist, and where you could find it and stuff like that. That's really sweet. That's great for the community,
Absolutely.
you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
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 Well, if you are ready, we're gonna jump into some questions because that's what the people want. They don't want to listen to me and
Go.
Lexi. They want to hear you. The first question we have is oh, I lost my notes. Here they are. Very just broadly, tell us about who you are and what you do.
I decided pretty early on in high school that I wanted to be an actor, and I went to college for that. And I've been an actor my whole life, but it's been everything from when I was in New York City. I worked on soap operas. There were so many soap operas at the time. I did theater when I was there, and I've always done a lot of things like TV commercials because they really pay the bills until you get the jobs that you want.
Yeah.
So I've been a lifelong actor, and mostly though on camera.
Hmm.
And the voiceover thing came in about 2009. I'd been asked about doing VO when I still lived in New York, but that was a time when, you still went into offices to actually audition, as opposed to now when everything you do is at your home computer and you just edit it and send it in. And so in 2009, I had another opportunity to get into VO. And a friend of mine happened to know the cast director for World of Warcraft. So she literally called that person and said, you got to meet, this actress who's doing VO now. And it was the first thing I got was World of Warcraft, Cataclysm. So from then on, I was able to get an agent who happened to be really good friends with that casting director. And that pretty much got the ball rolling for VO. I still mostly work on camera, but the VO is just something, I'll always be, having a hand in. I'll always be sending out auditions, and, it's like the rest of the acting business, for everything you audition for, you don't get most of them.
Sure.
But you just keep going. It's really about the resiliency of being willing to keep auditioning, even when you're kind of like on, how many auditions has this been that I haven't gotten a call saying, hey, you're on hold for this, something like that. But you just keep going. when you love it.
For
Yeah.
sure. I guess that kind of ties into one of the questions I had for a little later. I was going to say, what would be your advice to aspiring voice actors? Like, what would be some, um, you know, introductory hints and tips or advice? Anything.
Well, you know, if you have the acting under your belt, to me, that is the first step. It's not so much about, I took a lot of courses, voiceover, everything about commercials and, animation characters and things like that. But it almost always boils down to how genuine is your acting and does it come through? That's the most important part. So getting acting training would be one of the things. Being really technically proficient, there's a lot of people who, the whole idea of having to record and edit and, upload their auditions, it's more than technically they can do. Nobody your generation, okay? You all got this. But, if you got somebody who's like, I'm 50 and somebody said I have a great voice and I really want to get into VO, it's like, how comfortable are you with a computer?
Sure.
Because if you hate computers, this may not be what you want to do because you're pretty much responsible for all the technical end. I personally feel like I wanna support, the engineers and the sounds, studios right now. A lot of them took such a tremendous hit during the pandemic, and a lot of voice actors now have things so that they can completely record an entire session at home. So a lot of these people are really kinda struggling, and while I also don't wanna be fully responsible for, you know, my audio being completely perfect, I'd rather walk into a studio, into a booth, and have somebody else handle all that technical aspect. But yeah, that's one of the things, is you really need to be comfortable around using computers. And, that'd be one of the key things. But if you're young and you're really great with that, then I'd focus on the acting. And there are so many terrific free resources just for people who are just kinda like, "Man, I'd like to do this, but I need to know more." There's an Society of Voice Artists, SOVAS, which they offer these free, like, workshops online. It's a great resource for people who just wanna learn more about the business. So that's the other thing, in terms of education, learning everything you can, you know? Yeah.
That's really cool. I know that you know, one of the voices of Mass Effect, Jennifer Hale, has
Mhm.
oh man, the right word for it, like a program, I guess that
Yeah,
she
it's like
runs.
a
That's
thing they've got
for,
going
I
now.
think it's
Yeah.
like Skills Hub or something. Oh my gosh, Jennifer
Yeah,
Hale
that's
is
it.
somewhere like is like not saying this correctly, but she hosts or like in leadership of this Skills Hub program that is for aspiring voice actors. So that's just
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
to
Yeah.
compound what you're saying, that there are resources all over the place. Um,
Yeah, so even if, a lot of times, like, I remember some of my voiceover classes, would be paying, like, $650 for, like, 6 classes. If
yeah,
that's a lot for you, which it is for a lot of people, go online, find out some of the free resources that you can really get some good information. Almost every voice actor, gets asked that kind of
sure.
question, and they have certain things, that like for me, I found Sovas when during the pandemic, they were just, saying, "Hey, we're gonna be interviewing this person from Sound and Fury casting," and just the tips you could pick up from somebody who you send in auditions to all the time, that's invaluable, and it was free, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
amazing. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I've not heard of it
Yeah, it was
before,
great.
and
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people listening who would love to know that info.
Yeah.
So speaking of technical skills,
Mhm.
and we'll circle back around to the famous Vetra. Um, can you just sort of tell us? You've already spoken about how she's one of your favorite characters that you've done. Can you just tell us what it was like learning about Vetra? Her role, and your role in Andromeda, and just what that like for you.
Well, I was not a gamer. I played some games, but, it's just like one of those things that once I got busy with life and a kid
Sure.
and a full-time job and then the acting, I sort of like my husband and I used to play games when we were dating, the ones where you just beat the crap out of each other, and see
Yeah.
who wins. But that had been a long time prior. So, but when I did the audition, um, they always give you like a code name, so you don't know the name.
Sure.
It's called something so random like peanut butter. And so, "Hi, you booked peanut butter project." Oh, great! And it's not until you're standing in front of the microphone that they tell you what it is. And I have kept, they give you a notepad and a paper, and I've kept the page that I had in front of me that day on my first session. And it was with Caroline Livingston, who is the casting director. And she basically, I had to say, I'd heard of Mass Effect. Of course,
Hmm.
I mean, I knew of it, but I hadn't played it.
Sure.
So, she started giving me like all these keywords, what Vetra was like. But I do remember that moment when she said, "Well, this is Mass Effect." And I had this, "Oh, shit," moment in my head, where I was just like, "Oh my god," you just trying to be cool, just really
Sure.
trying to, chill here, but no, inside I was just like, "Who can I call first?" Nobody, can't tell anybody,
Yeah.
you know? That
That'd be the
that's
hardest part for me.
Oh, for
If I was
sure.
into it,
right?
I'd be like, "Oh God, I gotta stay quiet. Can't go on the internet. Nope."
Yeah, you can't tell anybody. I mean, like, I told my husband,
Sure.
who was super excited for me, but, just you just sit on it for the longest time. And even when they started releasing like little bits,
Yeah.
trailers,
Mhm.
teases, and you hear your voice for the first time, you still can't say anything until they announce you. But yeah, I mean, at the time when for a long time, one of my big survival jobs was as a stunt performer at Universal Studios in Hollywood.
Oh,
I
that's
played
really cool.
Sarah
Wow.
Connor in the
Wow!
show,
Oh my
and
God.
That's really
I had
cool.
I did it from the time we opened the show in 1999. I opened the show and I closed the show. I was like the only full-time performer who actually opened and closed the show. That's how much I loved that job. And I had so much of Sarah Connor in me that I'm sure a lot of that got channeled into Vetra. The Sarah Connor that Danny Rayne is, was channeled into Vetra Nick. So, when it comes to somebody who'll go to the ends of the earth to save somebody she loves. In Sarah Connor's case, it's John Connor.
Sure.
For Vetra, it's Sid.
Hmm.
So it's so easy for me to relate to that. And you really have to take from your own experience in order for it to be genuine enough that when people hear you, they believe you. So I took everything I had from Sarah Connor and I channeled that into Vetra.
Now that you mentioned that, I'm like I've only played through Andromeda once myself, but I today I just rewatched the Vetro romance for this podcast, which
Mhm.
my heart. Anyway, now that you say that, and like well, Rage is gonna laugh at this, but it seems that I seem to have a type in every single Mass Effect game, and that seems to be the woman who has like a big heart and cares about her sisters.
Yep.
Ashley,
Mhm.
Miranda, Vetra. There's a pattern of behavior, but you can really hear that devotion and doing the things and especially in Andromeda's setting where they're basically going out into the unknown. There's a
Mhm.
lot at stake, so I think that now that you say that, when I rewatch it or replay it eventually, I'm gonna have that in mind. But I
Yeah.
definitely already see where you definitely drew from that.
That was one of the nicest things one of the things I love best about Vetra. I mean, yeah, the badass, the military, everything that's written up on that thing, survivor, strong,
Sure.
badass, all those keywords that she gave me. Um, there was that, but I love the fact that she had such a tender side. And for this tall, strong, I'm not tall,
Neither are
my
we,
only
really.
shot to be tall.
Yeah.
So, but for this, imposing character to be like insecure and doubtful that anyone would find her attractive. That was one of the best things I enjoyed about playing Vetra was the other side of her, the soft, juicy inside, that was protected by all the strength and the power. And this is everything I've had to do to get to this point. But at the end of the day, there's still this love and the insecurity, you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of like symbolism there too, especially like for me, I love Vetra, but like Turians for me are really tough to like get into, right? I'm like they're like
Mhm.
birds. Like it's like
Yeah.
quite tough for me. But I think
Yep.
that, and this has been great. I love like speaking with you right now because like it's like being Vetra less of a bird. But like I think that the metaphor is that she has this hard exterior because she's a Turian, but like you just
Mhm.
said, she's like soft and gooey on the inside, which
Mhm.
is
Once,
like
one,
really cool. I love it. I
once
think it's
again,
great.
once again, my
Right.
type, the hard exterior,
It's
the
great.
soft interior.
I'll have to do a
I
Vetra romance now.
you
I have
please.
to, right?
Listen. When I saw Vetro and we'd only gotten the one female Turian in the Omega
Yeah.
DLC, and
Mhm.
spoilers, but she didn't
She
last
doesn't
very
make it.
long. She doesn't make
Yeah.
it out of that DLC. So for me, in the when they were introducing the trailers and stuff of the next Mass Effect game and seeing a female Turian, I was like, oh my god, we're actually gonna get a female Turian squad mate. And then like, I always joke with the friends that love Garrus, and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand this attraction to this bird guy.
Yeah.
And then Venture happened, and I'm like, oh,
I get it.
okay, I get it now. I just had to be, one of the other gender. Um,
But I gotta tell you, when they first show you visuals, so you can get an
mhm,
idea
Sure.
of what your character's gonna look like, she's not fully mapped out yet or not
mhm.
completely drawn, but they showed me Garrus and they showed me Nyrene, and I looked and went, "Ooh, wow. Okay, so forget about what she looks like, you're just voicing her."
Right.
Because I had that same thing of, "How do I get into this?" It doesn't matter, just it's your voice.
That's amazing.
Just that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
and
I
I
guess
had that
it.
first reaction too, reptilian bird creature? What the whoa.
yeah.
Does she have lips? I can't tell.
They're like mandibles kind of.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Mandibles. There's a
yeah,
mouth.
yeah.
I guess it would be another aspect. I'm just gonna throw another quick question in off the script, but what was it like hearing your voice go through the modulation for the Turian, like
Hmm.
the two-tone vocals? Because I always think that's so neat to hear,
Oh, I
especially
I
now
couldn't
hearing
agree
you like
more. I
on
could not
mic
agree
versus
more.
in game.
Yeah, yeah, because you bring your own voice and if you've been doing a lot of auditions, you've listened to your voice too much and you pretty much detest it. So then when they do the stuff that they do, then it's like, "Oh my gosh, now I hear the character. Now I hear it." I loved what they did, Again, like most actors, I'm tough on myself when I see myself on screen. "Oh, I should have done this different." Vocally, is that my voice? I really don't like it, but when you hear it all together, when it's just coming together, all the pieces, then you're like, yeah, no, they know what they're doing. I mean, Cheryl Chi is a great
Hmm.
writer. I love what she did for the character. And, the artists involved did such a beautiful job that my voice is just a component of it, but all the pieces put together were really exciting to see. In fact, it was probably like one of the last sessions. I did like about 10 or 11 sessions
Hmm.
that I had to do a little bit more that was kind of like ADR, lip syncing to the mandible lips, and that was the first time, and I remember just kind of like tearing up seeing the whole thing together with the voice. And it was on Liam's mission, actually. That whole mission where you guys are like sucked out the
Yes.
chamber, you're hanging on for dear life. And, there's some things that's like, I have no acting experience that prepares me for what it's like to be sucked out of a chamber and hanging on for dear life. You just got to find something that works. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really cool. I probably mentioned this at least once a session here, but I had the honor of meeting Allie Hillis a couple years ago, and we spoke about like her role as Liara. And I asked her just a few different things. Like for Liara to Sony's character, she has a very specific cadence that she speaks with, and we were talking about that, and she said some very similar things. It was like she could hear when she was recording what Liara sounds like, but it's not really until she can see the final product was it like, wow, this character is like real. And so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's a common theme, and it's really really cool that you like universally that's something that voice actors get to experience together.
Yeah, it's really something when you see the whole thing. And like in spite of the fact that I was not a gamer, I did buy the game as soon as it came out. And yeah, they don't send you a game for free. You go out and you buy it. But I sat on my sofa for like months learning how to play. I mean, I was just determined. And my son's a gamer, so he was helping me out, especially when I was making myself nauseous trying to drive the Nomad all
Oh
over
yeah,
the
for
place.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I had help. I had a pro, basically, at that time, he was what, 15 years old pro?
Yeah.
But it was really wonderful to experience, all the elements. One of my favorite things was recording the dialogue in the
Sure.
Nomad, just those
Oh yeah,
conversations
Oh,
so good.
you'd be
absolutely.
having, with Drac or whatever, and it was just so much fun, those kind of things, because those to me were the most, like, the bulk of what you do is acting, You're kind of revealing a piece of yourself and your history, but subtly and just through conversation, you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
those
the banters, yeah, the
are,
banters in the BioWare games,
are
I think
so good.
make it. They're great. Like,
Mhm.
especially when you get the different party dynamics and your two or three, and if you're playing Dragon Age, your different party members, and I can only imagine how many lines they throw at you to record to be like, okay, here's the list, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, that's the coolest thing about it. I mean, it's cool and it's rough, but because of the experience I've had as an actor, cold reading is something I've gotten good at.
Mm.
Half the time you prepare your sides and then they look at you and they go, we want you to read these instead. Can you take these for 10 minutes? And so the script that you worked hours on, forget that. But now you got 10 minutes and you got to bring it to life. So cold reading has become something that I really had to get good at. And that is really what recording a video game is all about. You don't get the script the day before or anything like that. You're standing in front of the microphone and they flash up some lines on a screen above your head and if you're lucky there's pre-recorded the other person so that you can have that conversation,
Hmm.
and otherwise it's the director reading opposite you. But it's the first time, and you're basically cold reading your dialogue. I mean, every once in a while you get it right the first time, and other times it takes 5, 6 times before you finally feel like, okay, that one's good. We can let that go.
Sure.
But yeah, it's really an exercise in cold reading as it just pops up on a screen in front of you with no preparation. And sometimes, like, you know, I would say, "Can you give me a little reference as to what this place is and how to pronounce it?" And they'd have to call somebody back at BioWare. We wait, we get on the line. "Oh, yeah, that's so and so, and it's pronounced this way, and this is the place that so and so happened." "Oh, okay. All right, good." And, that's it. That's how there's no preparation in advance where you're, like, marking a script and going, "Ask about this," or "Look this up." Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. There's nothing to look up if it's a planet that's been created in another universe. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think before this, when I was picking out like what our video background will be, I said something about like, oh, I could pick Havarl, but I hate Havarl. It's like I can never figure out how to do anything on Havarl. And Lexi was like, what? And I was like, yeah, it's just yeah, it's some jungle planet in Andromeda that I blocked out of my memory because it's like really
Oh,
difficult.
that
um,
one was so hard. I reached out on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure about 3 different people sent me walkthroughs, play by play, and links to YouTube videos of them getting through Havarl, and
it's
it was so hard.
it's
And
tough.
even when I was playing through, like, I played 2.5 times. When I was playing through on the 2nd and 3rd time, I'd forget how I got to that important
Yeah.
building that was really impossible to find your way to and have to go back and look up the stuff people had sent me to get me through that level. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. But
Yeah.
Mass Effect fans are so cool, and that's why
Oh,
we
yeah.
do this podcast. Lexi and I are just two Mass Effect nerds who met role playing Mass Effect characters like almost 10 years ago. And here we are doing a podcast about Mass Effect. Like, there are so few communities like the Mass Effect community that people will be like, yeah, here's a video that I just did about the walkthrough of Havarl. Have fun.
Do you do that in VR, the role playing?
We did it. It was written
Oh,
back
Yeah.
in the day. Yeah. So we
cool.
actually, I'll shout this out briefly for our listeners and our fans.
Hmm.
I am going to be DMing a Mass Effect themed D&D one shot on N7 day, so very soon.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
have Lexi will probably be able to figure out what I have planned, but I have a character planned that I'm going to really try and nail her voice for part of that.
Fantastic. That's great.
She's blue. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so
Shaka.
I know Shaka. So I love Liara. So no, she's back behind me.
Mhm.
But yeah. So no, we never like did it that way, but probably could have.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was mostly just writing, but I think in that sense you're kind of capturing an existing character
Sure.
and trying to come up with stories of your own accord just for fun.
Yeah.
And that kind of set, we play in D&D bi-weekly pretty much, not Mass Effect related.
Mhm.
But and just to give a shout out once again to Mass Effect Adventum, they are a tabletop D&D group that you can listen to, and they have a cast of 6 very unique characters. So that's always kind of like again, we speak to the fandom, and they're doing great things. We actually interviewed Tanaya and Emily, and had a great time with them. So it's just another facet of the fandom where they're taking this universe that we're all connected to and playing within it.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's
Yeah.
it's a really cool community. But yeah, I've got to say, I think um, seeing your engagement with the fans is always nice to see people being positive and nice and engaging with you.
Oh, yeah, especially on Twitter to find positive and nice is
Yeah,
really
yeah,
awesome,
it can be
you
tough.
know?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I know. Do I wanna dive into Twitter and go through the bloodbath in
No.
order to see, like, the 2 people have said, "Hey, look at this cool piece of art I just had commissioned," you
Yeah,
know?
well,
Yeah.
especially with, and I'm Lexi, I'm just kind of jumping around on the last 2
Yeah,
questions we have here,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm gonna kind of maybe combine the last 2 questions into a comment that's it's no secret that Andromeda didn't have the greatest launch that it could have.
Oh, yeah.
I played it at midnight. My now
Mhm.
husband was like, "Okay, is this working? I'm going to sleep. Like, I'll see you in 3 days." So I was like, "Cool, bye." But it didn't have a great launch for a variety of reasons. Lexi and I both kind of agree that many of them were unfounded. Um, so with that respect, it's now more widely accepted, I would say, than maybe originally at launch. Um, but what has that transformation of the game's acceptance been like for you as a cast member?
Well, it's been a very slow, long process,
Yeah,
with that initial tremendous painful disappointment that I was not gonna be in the successful Mass Effect, branch that I was hoping.
mm,
That was really it was really hard, but playing it early on and seeing the glitches myself, you know, I I totally I got it. But then the very slow growing of, "Hey, I just, picked up Andromeda and I really love it and I love your character." Those little messages would come up. It starts to build back your the fondness you had, when you were initially doing it. You're so excited and everything, and then it was a bit of a downhill
sure.
slide as we discovered that, it was kinda like getting panned. So, then to have people then slowly and I think for those people who waited a year or 2 to pick up the game, they were in a much better
Yes,
position because if they waited and they upgraded everything and got all the fixes, you know, they got the experience it would have been nice if everybody had with Andromeda. There's just so many things when it comes to this business, that are completely out of your control, and that was one of the hardest for me, but I've also had plenty of times where there would be like, "Hey, we're gonna write in this character on this thing that you did and, get ready," and then the next email your agent sends you says, "Well, we had to go in a different direction, so that's not gonna happen." This business is full of those things where you kind of like you don't wanna get your hopes up too high because it happens often enough,
sure.
but then it is really nice to have people who just reach out to me, and that's where Twitter has become such a saving grace because I do love it, when I pop that open and see, somebody who's had a really good experience and really enjoyed it. Because that's, what you hope for everybody. That's what
Hmm.
you hope everybody will have this incredible experience interacting and playing the game obviously and getting through all the levels, but the paths and the people or, Turians you meet, that's really what makes it memorable. So I'm glad some people are getting that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, and just to go back to my friend who I mentioned earlier, I really truly she literally played the game for the first time this year, the original trilogy, and then Andromeda, and she was like, "Why are people upset about this game?" I was like, "I have
Yeah.
no idea. I played it on launch and
Yeah.
loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's different. I liked that it was different enough from the original trilogy, and I'm a big original trilogy fan.
Yeah.
But I liked that it was different. It wasn't doesn't need to be the main story.
The
Lexi and I have
same.
a full episode about this.
Oh yeah.
Um,
We could go on
we
and
could,
on.
but we don't have time. You guys can go back and listen to episode 2. But I think that there was something special about recognizing like that Shepard existed, um,
Mhm.
but bringing in a new story and new characters to love, and to fangirl and boy and
Yeah.
everything in between over.
Yeah.
And so I felt that a lot of the hate that came about Shepard not being in it was just like, y'all need to get over it. It'll be fine.
Because it's funny. Because 'cause don't people have, like, 2 things that they complain about? That there's nothing new on
Right.
TV or
Yeah.
Hollywood can't produce
Yeah.
anything new, it's just exactly the same thing, just, recycled a little bit, and then sometimes people complain when it's not a recycled thing, and it's,
Right.
I think people just love to have something to complain
I
about.
think
Let's be
that's
real.
also
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think, like I said before, Bioware has created, and a lot of the writers. I think you mentioned Cheryl earlier. I think she's written some of my favorite characters in the series. So,
Yeah.
um, she stands out to me. But I feel like they've given this vast universe for us all to play in, and Andromeda is just another installment of
Yeah.
it, and it's fun. I mean, again, I need to replay it because I never did actually finish it, but it was 2017, so I was just finishing up my undergrad, and
Oh,
that would have been
wow.
about a month before my exam, so I probably binged it when I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I'm glad you have priorities, though.
yeah.
Glad.
Two
Meanwhile,
degrees later.
I had a full-time
Um,
job and I was like, "Hey boss, I'm taking the day off. I'll see you in a week. I'll see you later."
but I
Uh,
guess to speak to it, so kind of tying in, you're getting on my next question, or kind of our last little one that we had written here. But what was it like? You talked about your uh, when it was revealed that it was the Mass Effect series, but what was it like coming into the established series as like the newbie of the expansion? Like what did you feel about it? Did you get to meet any of the other voice actors that were already there, or some of the new ones? Like what was
well
it
I didn't
like?
get to meet anybody from the original trilogy. I did get to meet, um, Tom
Mm,
Taylorson, at my last session. We got to meet, um, I'm trying to think, I don't think I met anyone else, not even, like, in passing. Uh, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And you can't the same thing, like if you get hired to work on a TV show and it's a spinoff, you can't like think about what happened in the previous one. You just your character right now in the present and, bringing everything you can, that I think that's it. It's really a thing of like staying in the moment. Otherwise, yeah, you can really mess yourself up if you obsess about am I gonna be as good as the
sure.
last Turian?
Mhm.
You know? It's
Yeah.
just yeah, you just gotta stay, like, right where you live, you
Well,
know?
I mean, you nailed it as Vetra. And I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here, but I do think that Vetra was one of those characters from Andromeda that many people would say is like one of the
Stands
strongest,
out.
like stands out
Yeah.
for sure.
Like for me, like
Uh,
again, it was my first romance choice. Like I was like
Gold.
especially like as a queer gamer, and being kind of in the original trilogy, being kind of limited when it came to playing as female shepherd and having a female love interest. And so when they released these new games, it was the same thing with Dragon Age Inquisition, and now Andromeda. It was like, okay, like, am I going to be able to romance this character because she seems really cool? Like, that's always the hope, and sometimes it ends in painful disappointment.
Right.
Other
Miranda Lawson.
times it's like, oh, Miranda. Other times it's like, oh my God, like they're actually letting this happen to be, an option for both or just female player character. And so, like, getting to play that romance for the first time, totally blind, it's one of the cutest ones. Like, I just adored I think my favorite part of the whole romance, although the cliff jumping scene was pretty good, when they first sort of are like, yeah, I like you, but like you,
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
the part where Vetra does her best to try and cook a meal for Ryder, and she
Mhm.
like does a steak, like she like
Charbroiled.
obliterated,
Yeah.
charbroiled. It's
Yeah.
like done. And
Yeah.
it's just like, oh no, I ruined it. Like, I tried this thing and now I've ruined it.
It's
But Ryder
cow.
reassures her,
It's a cow.
it's cow. Oh,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that that scene always gets me. I think it's just one of those tender moments that they write in, but it's obviously the voice acting that seals that. And you
But
know,
thank you for saying that, but yeah, when you get a scene that's that well written, and I'm sure that's Cheryl Chi, it becomes effortless
Sure.
to kinda connect to that, and that's where, without that really good writing, and I've had situations where I've had to fight bad writing to try to make it sound like something found in nature when it's not, you know?
yeah,
But yeah, I was so happy when I found out that Vetra was going to be romanceable by, anybody. And I was so happy to find that out. And I played as Scott Ryder one
mm,
time and as, oh God, I just went up
Sarah.
on Sarah
Sarah.
Ryder the second time. And I was so happy that I could yeah, how bad does that make me sound that I romanced myself both times?
You
I
know
But
was
I
what?
I was gonna
I would do
ask
the
if
same
you
thing.
did, and so I'm glad that you
oh, I
said it.
did.
Of course, I would.
I did.
I'm
I
one of
would.
those people. Yeah, yes, that question. Like, would you kiss yourself? 100%. hundred
Well,
percent.
that's what you're doing basically when
Right.
you are, having to do the romantic stuff.
Sure.
It's basically like I was like, "Oh, I used to kiss the back of my hand when I was
Sure.
and so that's basically I'm now a grown person standing in front of a microphone kissing the back of my
That's
hand.
great.
But they're paying me, so
Sure.
okay, I'll
Well,
go
It's
with
hey,
it.
not weird
hey,
anymore.
go
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a really great experience to have, that added component of a romance. I think, there's a lot of, the additional acting that goes to it. I can only imagine trying to do that in a booth, and
Mhm.
not necessarily like face to face with another person.
Mhm.
But it definitely came through. That one's still one of my favorites out of the BioWare series,
Oh, I'm
which
so
is
glad.
Good one.
Thank
which
you
is
for
to
saying
say,
that.
and I'm not
Thank
just
you.
saying it, like, it's generally one of
Mhm.
my, like, there's Miranda and Vetra, and again, I have a type where we've long declared that, but um, I think it's parts of these Bioware games that we love as players. I think is to have that romance in our role playing games, is to be able to build a character, and whether you're playing the default iterations or you come up with a custom character,
Mhm.
and I think at one point way back when there might have been like some, like, I don't know if it was like one of these like sapphic things or like International Lesbian Day or something Bioware related. I am definitely sure. I think you retweeted. I had like a photo set of like my rider and Vetra and like my shepherd and whoever, and like tagged you guys in it. I'm pretty sure you retweeted mine. You did. I don't know if anyone else retweeted it, but you did for sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
love to do that. I always will. Always.
as a fan back then and younger back then, it really tickled me. I was like, I got noticed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
I love that stuff, it's like the experience you guys are having, just I love sharing that, putting it out there, and I love going back through my Twitter feed and seeing all of these really in fact, I put like a file together of like all the artwork and stuff that was coming through, and we made it hashtag #VetraArt, kind of combined the two words, and I have a whole file of that. And when you look back as an actor on parts that you've done, you don't always have that opportunity outside of rewatching the episode or something like that.
mhm.
but with Vetra, it truly is like a gift that keeps giving, Yeah.
That's so lovely. And I do think it comes back to just the performance and the way that Vetra sort of like permeated the lives of Mass Effect fans. But also like again, just like back to the community and just like how we profess our love. To like what Lexi was saying about romances. I romanced Liara the first time I played the original trilogy, but Liara just because she was who I role played when Lexi and I were role playing back in the day.
Mhm.
Truly, like, and I've explained to my husband, this poor guy, but I was like, Liara just like honestly became one of my best friends. Like I just got to know her and like she became part of my world. And I love that Mass Effect and BioWare games. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional. I'm like 4 months pregnant, so like, oh my God, the emotional, the emotions. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Name her Vetra.
Well, it's a boy. It's a boy,
Oh,
so
okay.
Boy.
Vetro. I'll
Well,
do
she
Vetro.
did try to get Liara to
I
happen.
did.
That didn't happen.
Yeah, I did. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's
so
a great name.
they are
Yeah,
as lovely.
yeah.
Anyway, but I think that just like BioWare and then the cast that they bring on and just the way that they produce these games allow so many people to truly feel like the characters are part of their lives. And you truly, I mean, look, all the people on Twitter who tag you and feel like they want you to know how important Vetra is to them. That speaks volumes about your contribution.
No, well, thank you so much for saying that.
You're
That
welcome.
means a lot. Hey, and congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
pregnancy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
we're super excited. It's very
Yay.
nerve wracking, but
I'm
Yay.
so
it's
glad
wild.
you finally were able to go public about it. I've been
I
sitting
know.
on it as a
Lexi
secret.
knew very
I've known
early.
since like very early, and I'm like having to sit here going,
Please tell people.
can't say
And as
anything.
mom of a son, I can really just say, yeah, you're gonna have a good time. You're just creating your own gamer to play against, right?
Yeah. My some of my friends through the online community have sent me like little toys that look like Xbox controllers and Game Boys and D&D books, and I'm waiting for a
Nice.
Mass Effect kid book, but they don't exist that I can tell. So
Yeah.
I'll buy an N7 onesie from the BioWare store. But anyway, the last thing I'll say, and you don't have to comment one way or the other, and I'm not asking for that, but here's what I'm hoping for. I'm gonna be real honest with you, Dean. I would like that the next Mass Effect game, whatever the heck that they teased last year, to connect the Milky Way to Andromeda, because Andromeda's story is not done yet, and I hate to think that it is. So, you have at
I'm
least
right with you.
2 people that you can
Yeah.
count yourself, 3 people on this podcast right now who are ready for more Andromeda. So there are tons of us out there who recognize that Andromeda, it didn't get the welcome that it deserved, but I think that it's
It still deserves the love.
it
still
is
deserves it.
it has the love. It's getting it, and people know.
I
how good
so
it is.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And this is just the way I would end this anyway.
Sure.
But if the people at BioWare, are interested, you know where to find me.
Perfect. I'll send this to them best that I can. But truly, thank you so much for joining us. We have been looking forward to this for some time.
Oh yeah,
And you're
I've been so excited.
Great.
you are
I-
our first voice actor to join us on the podcast, and so thank you.
I am so honored.
Yeah.
I am so honored.
It's so
Thank
great.
you.
We were super excited, but as I said, Vetra is beloved among many of the people that we know. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
It's,
I had a great time meeting you both.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
If you liked this podcast, please rate, like, and comment on your platform of choice. To show further support, you can follow us on Twitch, Twitter, and subscribe to our channels on YouTube. Everything discussed today will be archived on the Broker's terminal. After all of the Galaxy secrets are at the Shadow Broker's fingertips.